Hi, so in this film I'm now going to talk about camera settings. So folks, a lot of the videos that I've discussed earlier on, I have gone through using your camera manually. Now as a professional and as a photographer, you're using 90% of your time. You're going to be using those settings, or using that one setting, the manual. So you choose your aperture, then you're going to ask the camera what the shutter speed is, and meter reading. Now for that, it's basically how you get the correct exposure, and that's how you get a best picture. Now, what the camera does have, it then has other camera settings that you can use. But a high percentage of those is the camera working it out for you, but the camera doesn't know what you're doing. So for instance, if you put it on sport mode, how does the camera know what sport you're photographing? So for instance, if you're photographing motorsport, you're going to want about 1,000th of a second, really super fast shutter speed. But you might be photographing football. So how is it going to know which one it is? So basically folks, I'm saying stay away from them. It's not correct. But let me go into one or two of the ones I would use. So first of all, we're going to use manual. That's 90%. You might use shutter speed priority. Now that is sport photography, okay? That's S for Nikon, TV for Canon, okay? Now that, you're choosing the shutter speed because you know what sport you're doing. Then the camera is going to work out the aperture, so it's going to be faster shutter speed, lower aperture. So you know you're going to get a low depth of field, as in sport photography. Okay. Now, the camera meter reads for you. So sport photography, I would use shutter speed priority. Now, aperture priority for Nikon or AV for Canon, that's basically you choosing the aperture, and the camera is going to choose the shutter speed for you when it meter reads. The problem with that is if you're not paying attention, you're not going to be working out the shutter speed. So as we mentioned earlier on, anything lower than a 60th of a second, you're going to get camera shake. So for me, I would personally rather use my camera manually for the sake of meter reading and taking control of everything, than stick it on aperture priority. For me, it feels just a little bit lazy, and you're not taking care as much for the sake of 2 seconds. It really is that. Now, also for me is when I'm doing paparazzi photography, when I'm doing reportage, and when I'm basically using one of these beauties, when you're using a camera flash. Again, as I mentioned in one of the other films, when I'm talking about camera flash, you stick your camera flash on TTL bulb, you stick your camera on auto, and the camera does all the work for you. It works out the distance between you and your subject, as in how much power it needs to give, as in how much light it needs to give, and the correct shutter speed, which it will be 60th of a second. So folks, really, stay clear of sport mode, landscape mode, nighttime mode, because now you know how to use your camera manually, you don't need to. You're doing it as a pro. Okay folks, so remember, manual, you've got full control. Shutter speed, you're choosing the shutter speed. The camera is then going to choose the aperture for you. So, fast shutter speed, low aperture, low depth of field. Long shutter speed, high aperture. Or as I like to think, you choose your aperture first of all, and then the camera tells you what your shutter speed is. And then aperture priority is you're choosing the aperture, the camera is going to tell you what the shutter speed is, but always make sure you've got a tripod, because if you go out and it's a cloudy day and the camera automatically goes down to a lower than 60, you haven't got a tripod, you're wasting your time folks. You're going to get camera shake. Okay, thanks for your time, take care.